Okay, it's the only Feng Shui mention about Qi. The Chinese mention everything else in Qi, including the Qi in the body. If you want to find a word in English to describe it, the best I can think of is the word called force. Everything carries a force. In science, we know. When the earth moves, the earth produces some force. Any object, whether the object big or small, the bigger the object has got bigger forces. A smaller one, they got smaller force. And that's how in Feng Shui term it as Qi, which I think we can say it quite comfortably that it is mentioning or referring to force. Now, where does this force come from? Well, as I said just earlier, that any object, whether it's due to gravitational force or due to movement, they will all have forces. That we know since our school days. Can these forces be measured? Yes and no. Yes, if we're talking about gravitational, you're talking about movement, yes, in science we can. But when we're talking about the forces that it is not seen in science, we haven't got the equipment or the instrument to measure them, then we can't measure. For example, we're talking about telephone. When you send a telephone message or they make a telephone call, there is some waves that is traveling. These waves in Chinese term is also considered Qi. How do we measure that a message sent from another phone to you? Can you measure them? You can receive them, but the measuring takes instruments to identify and quantify them, and that is a bit difficult. But I think our current sciences maybe is developing toward that angle. But when we refer to the brain power, when we refer to a living plant that has got a growing force, or we're talking about an object, a decaying object that has got decaying force, that measurement becomes more difficult. In particular, we're talking about a living object like a plant with the growing forces. I don't think we have any instrument to measure that yet. If we are talking about a brain wave that you are thinking of something, and then the brain wave travel and somebody else receive it, that again, I don't think we have the instrument as much as our medical faculty have developed by leaps and bounds. That measurement, you need very sophisticated instrument, which I don't think we have yet. In Feng Shui, when we refer to these forces, we are talking about the forces from the ground, the uptake of the forces, which we know there are, but we cannot quantify them and we cannot identify them, but we know there are. When we're talking about forces entering the house through the doors and the window, we know there are. But just by the sheer difference in temperature, we know the air will move from cold to hot, for example. They carry forces. Can we measure these forces in the term of Qi? No, not as yet. We know there are. And that's what we are referring to about the measuring of this Qi. We can only measure by the result that it shown or been amplified to give you the look, what we look after or we look for, which is the solution in phenomena. Yes, like we know when the wind blows, we don't see the wind, but we see the leaves move, we see the curtain move. Yes, we know the wind is moving towards that direction. Measuring it is a totally different question.